Good morning, Bronzo. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Frankie Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices and we have allowed for our platform, this mic, to be that of the voice of the people. Now, if this is something that you can see yourself supporting, being a champion for, we ask that you like, comment, and share this live feed. Now, as of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. The powers that be do not want you, the voter, to know the truth. But remember, we will not be silenced. Now, if you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders accountable, well, make sure you subscribe to our social media platforms. Currently, right now, I seem to have fixed the glitch. Currently, right now, we are streaming on all of our platforms. We could be found under Frankie Olivo on X, formerly known as Twitter. On Facebook, we could be found under Frankie Olivo and Olivo Frankie. Make sure you subscribe to both of our Facebook pages. And also, more importantly, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. Currently, right now, we are around the 750 mark. My goal, or our goal, is to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I have 250 subscribers to go. Remember, Bronzo, I will never ever ask you for money. I will never ever ask you for food. Well, depends what you're making. The only thing that I ask, ladies and gentlemen, is to support the cause. How do we support the cause? Subscribe to all of our social media platforms, but in particular, please go and subscribe to our YouTube page titled Frankie Olivo TV. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. religiously, rain or shine. So make sure you subscribe to Frankie Olivo TV on YouTube to tune in. We will not be silenced. And always remember, Brownsville, I am forever grateful to each and every one of you for the time and attention that you provide us. Thank you so much for that. How we doing, chat? How we doing? Happy Thursday. It's been a long week for your humble servant. We're grateful that we're busy. Being occupied is a good thing. We got to take advantage of these days because being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, there's good days and there's bad days, but we have to make the best of everything. Right now, we're kind of in a slug, and we're kind of sluggish, but our busy season is going to amp up very, very soon, or right around the corner. I've learned to appreciate everything that happens in my life, good and bad. It seems as if life is like a yo-yo, right? You go through things, you learn from it, but then prosperity comes. Then everything, your hard work, everything that you've been working for comes into fruition. Yesterday, I was with a client of mine, and we talked about manifestation. We don't realize how powerful our mind is. We don't realize how powerful us speaking into existence, whatever goals we have. Many people have stated to me before, if you're passionate about something, if you want something, write it down. Every day, read about it. It's going to happen. I've been, throughout the course of our episodes, programs on here on Good Morning Brownsville, I've been reached out by many people, concerned citizens, grandmothers, students, people from all walks of life. And what I've noticed is that we have something good going. And I think there is a way for myself to provide even more to my community. I'm not talking about politics per se, but there is something out there that many people throughout this journey have been asking me and questioning me. Why don't you do this? You'd be great at this. So it's something that I've always dreamed about, but I'm a big believer in timing. I think timing in life is very important. Many times we want things at a certain time, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. time will always be on the side of the truth. Time will always be on the side of justice. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about a story that has reached the hearts and minds of many people, not just in our area, but throughout the state of Texas. The story today that I want to talk about is in regards to Baby Logan, the 4-year-old student, preschool student that unfortunately passed away. We have covered this story in numerous episodes. This program is always in search of the truth. My job is to provide you the good, the bad, and the ugly, the black and the white. I stay away from the gray area as much as possible. I want this platform to be your source of information. We pride ourselves in providing you information that sometimes is not out to the public. We've been fortunate enough to have the confidence, the trust in community members that have entrusted us with important information. Moving forward, I hope that you realize that this program isn't one designed to convince you, by no means. My job is to give you the information, the whole enchilada. Whatever you decide to do with it is out of my hands. We have been critical of this case. At the end of the day, we can all relate and possibly feel the pain, not just of the parents that lost their loved ones, but all the parties across the board. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about an individual that has been vilified, that has been crucified by the media. Maybe Good Morning Brownsville has participated in that. I want to give you the other side of the spectrum. I want to talk about the other side of the coin. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we will make the argument as to why we feel wholeheartedly that an individual that was arrested by the name of Karen Silva is innocent. Today, we will focus on her story and why she is being singled out. At the end of the day, we are all about seeking the truth, no matter where it leads us. Today's program, ladies and gentlemen, is titled, Karen Silva is Innocent. Here's the proof. Thank you so much for tuning in, Brownsville. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Vámonos con la información. Y es que hoy se lleva a cabo la audiencia ante un juez en la ciudad de Brownsville. Esto con el fin de Lila de desestimar los cargos en contra de Karen Silva, una de las mujeres señaladas tras la muerte de un pequeño de 4 años en un transporte escolar, luego de un paseo en una guardería.
Así es, Marta Alicia López desde el condado Cameron nos tiene más al respecto. Marta, vamos contigo.
Keila Madero es la mujer que fue llamada a declarar durante esta audiencia. Explicó lo ocurrido durante el día 27 de junio, fecha en que falleció el menor que había sido olvidado en la camioneta de la guardería The Learning Club, ubicado en la cuadra 3900 Paredes Line en Brownsville. El Estado cuestionó sobre los protocolos que utilizan cuando salen a un paseo.
Look at all the seats under and on the seats as well?
Yes, sir.
Are you supposed to go through every row and make sure there's no children there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the driver's supposed to be doing it.
Yes, sir.
And obviously the co-pilot, both are responsible, right?
Yes, sir.
La defensa de Karen Silva cuestionó a Karen Madero, quien se encontraba en el estrado declarando, ya que argumentaba que antes de salir del paseo la directora contó también a los menores cuando se subieron al vehículo, situación que no ocurrió cuando regresaron a la guardería. Noé Garza, el abogado defensor, cuestionó sobre una lista que le habían asignado a Karen Silva de estudiantes.
Karen Silva was assigned 10 children.
Yes.
That she would be responsible for.
Yes.
Right? And Santa Reeves would be assigned 10 other children that she would be responsible.
Yes, but that was solely for the field trips.
La testigo señaló en varias ocasiones que el pequeño Logan no se encontraba en la lista que tenía Karen asignada, pero cuando fueron trasladados en el vehículo, ella tenía que haberlos contado también.
To oversee 10, she couldn't oversee 20, right? And Miss Sandy Ruiz was responsible for the other 10. And that meant overseeing Logan and Jeremiah Vina.
Yes,
That's what you understand.
but again, as with field trips, once they stepped in that van, they're both in charge of all the kids in the van.
La defensa argumentó en esta audiencia que Keila Madero no tenía licencia para conducir y ella trasladó a 6 pequeños en otro vehículo que fue a este paseo. Además, que Karen había salido a la 1:30 de la tarde y que cómo era posible que el resto de empleados tampoco habían echado de menos al menor, que murió en el transporte escolar. Ahora solo falta esperar la fecha que se le asigne a este caso, mientras que la defensa probablemente seguirá argumentando varios de los puntos que se tocaron el día de hoy, mientras que el Estado seguirá señalando probablemente que las 2 personas responsables de ese niño eran las que se encontraban en ese transporte escolar. Marta Alicia López, Noticias Telemundo.
The death of baby Logan, unfortunately, will be the example of preschools, daycares, even for seniors, the adult daycares. This is going to be an example moving forward for those type of establishments. And at the end of the day, our main focus is seeking the truth. We want the community to be told and to be given all the information. At the end of the day, what we have seen from social media has been a lot of hate, a lot of animosity, rightfully so. We try to place ourselves in the role, in the position of the parents that lost their child. We might even try and place ourselves in the shoes of the staff, the owner that was part of this daycare, this preschool. When it comes down to it, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all agree that this is an unfortunate death, and no person would ever wish ill will. I don't want to say maybe on anybody, but much less a child. At the end of the day, these staff members that were present on this tragic day, they're females. They were possibly parents themselves. So one thing that we want to focus on, ladies and gentlemen, is the truth. We pride ourselves in giving you the whole information, because at the end of the day, what this community is seeking is justice. Justicia para Logan. And this is something that we are in full support of. We have been following this case, as we all have. And one thing that I can tell you is that the individual that we're focusing on, or have been focusing on, Karen Silva, is the less culpable out of all the staff members that were there. Today, I want to talk about her innocence. I want to go over that tragic day, detail by detail, and show you firsthand that Karen Silva should not have been charged with that crime. Now, I am not claiming to be an attorney. I am not claiming to be a legal expert, such as Minerva Peña from the BISD School Board. By no means. I am giving you my interpretation as a layperson. But what is interesting to learn from all this, ladies and gentlemen, is the details of the case. When we think of people who commit crimes, the ones with the biggest task, ladies and gentlemen, is those individuals at intake, those individuals that seek arrest warrants, those individuals that try to bring justice to whatever crime was committed. And I am not saying that this is an easy job. By no means. This is a very difficult job that our prosecutors, that our investigators have. By no means. They have a very big role, very big responsibility. Could it be that this individual's possibly due to the pressure of the community, this being a high-profile case? Maybe they were compelled to arrest those individuals. Today, I want to go over the affidavit for an arrest warrant that was issued for the death of Baby Logan. It goes on to read, in the name and authority of the state of Texas, before me, the undersigned authority on this day personally appeared Detective Julian Ramirez, who, after being by me duly sworn on oath, deposes and states that he has good reason to believe and does believe that therefore, on or about the 27th of June, 2025, before making and filing of this complaint in Cameron County, Texas, Sandy Ruiz did then and unlawfully commit the injury to a child, a second-degree felony. It goes on to state, on Friday, June 27th, 2025, suspects Karen Silva and Sandy Ruiz committed the criminal offense of injury to a child, second-degree felony, when by act or omission, neglectfully and with criminal negligence caused seriously bodily injury to a child under the age of 14, identified as Logan Urbina, 4 years of age. The two suspects were in direct care, custody, and control of the child, and by omissions caused the death of this victim, identified as Logan Urbina. On this day, June 27th, 2025, on or about 4:56 p.m., Brownsville Patrol Services were dispatched to a call for service at the Learning Club Preschool on Paredes Line Road in reference to a child found unresponsive inside of a school van parked in the front of the business. Patrol Services arrived on the scene and made contact with a female identified as Karen Silva and Sandy Ruiz, along with several other witnesses. Information provided indicated that on this day, the children from the preschool were taken to a field trip in the city of Los Fresnos, Texas, by employees and volunteer parents. This investigator learned that the students left for the field trip at approximately 8:30 a.m. The field trip concluded at about 11, at which time the children were brought back to the preschool and arrived on or about 11:30 a.m. This investigator learned that approximately 24 children had been taken to the field by staff members in separate vehicles. Approximately 15 students, to include the deceased, Urbina, Logan, were placed inside of the school transport, was identified in a van as a 2018 Ford Transit van brought back to the school after the field trip. Statements obtained that on approximately 4:30, staff members realized that Logan, the child, was missing after checking the business. The suspect, identified as Karen Silva, and a second female, identified as Vilma Torres, were outside of the company van, at which time they located the child deceased inside the van. This investigator learned that the females proceeded to remove the child from the van, at which time a witness identified as Luis Garza placed the child inside his vehicle and began to give the child CPR. Brownsville Patrol Services arrived shortly, a while later, along with Brownsville EMS, and established that the child was deceased. At the time of the offense, this investigator obtained non-custodial statement from Sandy Ruiz, who indicated that she and Karen Silva were in charge of the school van and in charge of the children. That's the key word. That's the key phrase. Sandy Ruiz indicated that she and Karen Silva were in charge of the school van and in charge of the children inside the van. Ruiz advised that they went to the field trip to Los Fresnos, Texas, and returned at approximately 11:30 a.m. Ruiz advised that she exited the van and opened the passenger door, at which time she claims the children exited the van all at once and were escorted into the preschool. Ruiz advised that they proceeded to go into the preschool, not realizing that the child Logan Urbina had not exited the van. Witness statements were also obtained from female co-workers identified as Vilma Torres, Mari Carmen Perez, and Kaylin Valero. In summary, the witnesses advised that the children were taken on a morning field trip and were in direct care of the suspects identified as Karen Silva and Sandy Ruiz. The female suspects, Silva and Ruiz, were in direct control of the transit school van where the deceased was later found unresponsive. This case, ladies and gentlemen, has been interesting to say the least. What we learned from this case has been that Urbina, the baby, was left in the van. When we talk about the van, ladies and gentlemen, it is interesting to learn of the dynamics of what happened that day. The parties, ladies and gentlemen, did go to a field trip. It states on the complaint that there was separate vehicles that took these children on this field trip. Those entrusted were staff members. When they got back at 11 a.m., the first thing they did was have lunch. This case, ladies and gentlemen, is very telling because we feel as if the investigators, they jumped the gun and they charged Karen Silva when they shouldn't have. Now, my role before you, ladies and gentlemen, is to give you facts, to talk about what happened. That is the reason why I asked for this information. I looked for this information. And one thing that we learned from this is that van. According to the complaint, it states that a total of 25 children went on this field trip. Karen Silva and Sandy Ruiz, as I show you on the screen, had a van occupied with 15 students going and coming to the field trip. Now, when we talk about responsibility, custody, and care, I want you to remember and focus on possibly your experience. And look, we have good numbers right now. And I'm sure that we have mothers, grandmothers that are following this program live. Good morning. What's been your experience? We've all possibly have gone. We've possibly volunteered to go to these field trips. And as we all know, the children, well, they deserve the time and attention because at the end of the day, well, they're kids and they're possibly going to be all over the place. We have talked about previously how the protocol procedures normally is that there's a buddy system, that there's students holding hands, that there's eyes constantly on the children. People have stated there should have been a head count. Why wasn't there a head count? What if I told you that there was a head count? What if I told you that negligence wasn't from Karen Silva, but from Sadie Ruiz? Negligence was not demonstrated by Sandy Ruiz. Where am I going with this? Well, just like how I told you, ladies and gentlemen, just like how I told you, I'm trying to get a picture of the other individual that I have before you because I have there she is. I'm going to show you a picture because right now I have a question mark and I found her. I found the other person that either drove the van or was also, yes, she drove a vehicle. So from my understanding, according to the criminal complaint, the arrest warrant, once again, there were 24 children that had been taken by staff members in separate vehicles. That's what the complaint states. Sandy Ruiz was one of the staff members that was there, along with Karen Silva and Kaylin Valero. If I'm not mistaken, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this question mark that I have of the other individual that was driving the other vehicle was this person that I have on the screen. I believe this is the other individual that was driving the other van with the other 9 students. Well, it doesn't specify how many kids went on the other vehicles. Because remember, according to the criminal complaint, it just states 15 students were in the van driven by Silva and Ruiz on the left. Now we know, or I am proposing that this is the driver of the other vehicle that was called to testify not too long ago. The defense team did request a habeas corpus hearing before the judge. Currently, right now, Karen Silva is in a limbo. Many people were questioning, why did she receive a $10,000 bond? Sadie Ruiz received a $60,000 bond for a second-degree felony. Well, she has an ICE detainer. When she posted bond on the $10,000, ICE took custody of her. And right now, currently, Karen Silva is in a limbo. The Cameron County Sheriff's Department does not have a contract with the federal government. So essentially what's happening is the federal government cannot or is not paying for the services of having their inmates at the county jail. This happened in the former administration of Eric Garza, our former sheriff. There was a dispute between the federal government and his administration based on multiple factors. Right now, Karen Silva is in the custody of Cameron County at Carrizales, but she is under the control of ICE, the federal government. So essentially, for those individuals that have been in jail, not our proudest moments, they talk about as if you are spending time in jail, you get credit for it. You get credit for the days that you have in jail. Karen Silva is not getting credit for her time either. She could possibly get it for her time at the county, but she's not getting credit for her time with the federal government. Again, she's on an ICE detainer. This before you, ladies and gentlemen, this picture before you, I have all the parties involved. Well, the parties involved, two of the parties involved. From left to right in maroon, we have Karen Silva, the defendant. Standing up next to Karen Silva is her attorney, Noe Garza. On the far back is the Cameron County District Attorney, Arturo Teniente. On the podium, we have Nat Perez. To the far right, ladies and gentlemen, over here where I'm circling is the owner of the business with her attorney, who is co-counsel to Nat Perez on the podium. Now, how would you feel, ladies and gentlemen, if I told you that there was no procedures, no protocols? What do you mean, Frankie? What do you mean there was no protocols? Well, the reason why this hearing was requested, by the defense was because they wanted to talk and depose the owner. They wanted to know the procedures, the protocols of field trips. We want to see your file. What if I told you that the defense, the owner, does not want to give it up? Now, again, it's a legal case. Criminal implications are at stake. The owner will possibly be sued by the family for thousands, hundreds, if not millions of dollars. So they're hesitant to speak. They're hesitant to release a file. Why are they hesitant to release a file? Our production team was discussing this matter over these past few days. And someone from the production team said, maybe there's not a file, Frankie. What if they're creating a file? And when I say they, I don't mean the defense attorneys. By no means. These guys are good at what they do. Noe Garza is a hell of an attorney. Arturo Teniente, a hell of an attorney. Nat, the Perez's, hell of attorneys. But is the owner hiding something? Does a file exist? You would think that teachers were instructed, given guidance as to the procedures, protocols of these matters, but they weren't. Now, Karen Silva is not what's the proper word? She's not a títere. We're talking about an individual, Karen Silva, that is educated, has a bachelor's, has a master's. Now, I'm not saying just because, she's educated, you see? What I've realized that people that have some form of education, well, they're good at following instructions. They're responsible. They're able to complete tasks that are given to them. In this case, we are making the argument that there was no procedures. There was no protocol from who? From the owner. You're talking about Karen Silva that is educated. You're talking about Karen Silva. We're working on it, Rosas. Give me time. We're working on it. That is educated. Also, parents, I talked to you about the school, the protocols. I'm sure you have sent your child on a field trip. What if I told you? And again, whenever you think of entrusting someone with your kid, whenever you send your kid to school, to preschool, to elementary, to middle school, to high school, who do you entrust your child with? Do you entrust their child with the employee Do you entrust the child with the janitor? Or do you entrust your child to the principal? You say, principal, by me sending my child, you are responsible for the care, safety, education of my child. You don't say, my son is going to preschool, I entrust him to the teacher. While the teacher do have vital role in protecting, caring, educating, at the end of the day, what you're doing by sending your kid to elementary, to middle school, to high school, essentially what you as a parent are doing is entrusting that child with the principal. In this case, the students, the parents of those students were entrusting their child with the owner. The buck stops with the owner. Now, so who is to blame, Frankie? Who is to blame? Again, if we talk about that day, they were gone from 8 to 11. They got back to the daycare at 11:30. They ate. And they took naps. But remember what I told you earlier about being responsible, about head count? This is what I feel is the smoking gun. This is what I feel is what should cause for Karen Silva, or for this case to be looked in a whole different perspective. This is a list, ladies and gentlemen, on that day of this field trip. In total, we have 25 students. I'm going to read it very quickly for you. Teacher Karen was responsible for Addison Guerra, Mariana Rangel, André Arredondo, Ángela González, Dago Compián, Ashton Guerra, Jimena Jacobo, Jesús Garza, Ariani Serna, Fernanda Leal. Teacher Sandy is responsible for Paula Barajas, Luis Arredondo, Jose Hernández, Ali Durán, Araz Martínez, Logan Urbina, Marilyn Mendoza, Cielo de la Cruz, Leon Shears, Jeremiah Urbina. Teacher Kay is responsible for Apple, Alexis Jacobo, Mia Leal, Kyle Valero, Lua Duran. Again, there were no proper procedures given to the employees. So much so that this individual here on the screen that drove the other vehicle did not even have a license. How do you feel that you're entrusting your children to the principal, and that principal is not making sure that the other people that they're entrusting does not even have a license? Now, again, the smoking gun for me is who was responsible for who. According to the criminal complaint, the arrest warrant, 25 children went to that school. Teacher Karen was responsible for 10. Do we see Logan Urbina's name under Karen's responsibility? No. Teacher Sandy responsible for 10 children. Do we see the name of Urbina on Teacher Sandy's responsibility? Yes. Teacher Karen was responsible for 5 children. Do we see an Urbina on her list? No. Who was responsible for the Urbinas? Remember when I told you that there was a head count? Remember when I told you that there were eyeballs on these children? Remember? Karen Silva was not responsible for Baby Logan. Karen Silva was responsible for 10 students. She made sure that her 10 students were taken care of. She made sure that her 10 students returned to the preschool alive. Karen Silva should not have been charged with this crime. Karen Silva checked off the van her 10 students. Teacher Sandy did not do her job. Negligence was shown on the part of Sandy Ruiz, not Karen Silva. Karen Silva was responsible for 10 children, and she brought those 10 children back to school alive. If we go back to the criminal complaint, Karen Silva was, Teacher Sandy was real quick to talk. Oh, yes, we were entrusted. No, Sandy Ruiz, you were entrusted with 10 children. Why didn't you bring back all 10 of those children back alive? Why? What if I told you, ladies and gentlemen, that Karen Silva on that day had a doctor's appointment at 1 in the afternoon after lunch? They arrived at 11. The children got to the school at 11:30. Karen Silva was gone for an hour, possibly longer. Why? Because she's in her first trimester. It is said, Araceli Treviño, it is said that Jeremiah Urbina, the younger brother of Logan, was asking for his brother, was asking for the brother. They were tied at the hip. Where's Logan? He was ignored. And again, these students, ladies and gentlemen, they ate. Whenever you have a party, don't you ask for a head count? Can you please RSVP so I can have the adequate number of plates before you? You do, right? Why? Because you want to make sure that every guest that you invite is fed. Si no, qué vergüenza. You'll be the talk of the town. Fui al pobre de este vato, ni tenía para comer. Ordenaron pizzas. Why wasn't this? Why didn't it come to nobody's head? Hey, there's 25 children that left. Why do we only have 24 plates? Remember, Karen Silva had a doctor's appointment. Karen Silva wasn't there. Sandy Ruiz was there the whole time. When you say that everyone is responsible, Gamboa, Karen Silva, according to this list, was responsible for 10, and she brought back her 10. Her 10 came back and ate. Also, again, I'm giving you the example. Whenever you have a party, you have a head count. Why? Because you want to make sure that every client is fed. At preschool, don't they have a head count? Don't they say, hey, something's missing, something's off? But they didn't. This wasn't Karen Silva. Also, the owner was present when they arrived. Shouldn't the owner have stated, okay, I give you responsibility. I give you the responsibility of designating these certain students under your care. Let's go one by one. Karen Silva brought back her 10 alive. The owner, ladies and gentlemen, we learned that the owner was present when the children got back. She did not do her due diligence. The owner is to blame. Sandy Ruiz is to blame. When staff finally realized at 4:30, remember, I'm telling you that Karen Silva was not present. She was no longer in custody, in control of the child. She was not supervising children. Why? Because she had an excused absence. She went to the doctor, the female doctor. When the staff realized that Logan Baby was missing, that's when they called Karen. Hey, come back. Something's wrong. Also, whenever these children were put to sleep, because again, we eat and we sleep. Tomamos una siesta. Well, I do. Don't they count the cots, the beds? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hey, something's off here. Something's off. One's missing. Trevino, I'm not sure. I know that I was informed that Karen Silva's children attended the daycare preschool, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about Sandy Ruiz, if she has children or if they went, just for the record. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Silva was not in the area. The teachers, the staff that were present at the preschool, they had multiple attempts at possibly saving this child's life. Now, what's interesting to learn is what's going to come out of the autopsy. When did the child die? The time is going to be very important. Right now, I will make the argument that Karen Silva should not have been charged with the crime. She had a list, a responsibility of 10 people that she was responsible for. She brought it back. Now, again, I am informing you that this woman was pregnant. I'm informing you that this woman it's going to be evidence. It's public record. I understand, but at the end of the day, this is public record. What I'm showing you is not information that nobody's privy to. No, this is public information. This is a crime that happened. This is a death. It's public information. This individual was pregnant. She is pregnant. She's in her first trimester. Now, I was informed by a member of my production team that women, whenever they are pregnant, that they have a need to urinate, to go to the restroom, go number one a lot during the first trimester. That is due to hormonal changes. Karen Silva being pregnant. Perhaps needed to use the restroom. At the end of the day, she got off her 10 because this was a shared responsibility. You can't blame Karen Silva for everything, for all the children. That's impossible. That is not right. She was entrusted with 10 individuals, and she brought back 10 individuals. We can't place the blame. Karen Silva clocked in at 1:30. Her shift ended at that time. The reason why she went back to the school was to pick up her kids. So they found out at 4:30 that Logan was missing. They called paramedics. They called emergency services at 5. Karen Silva returned, not because they called her, but to pick up her kids that do attend. So Karen Silva clocked out at 1:30. Her shift is done. She was entrusted with 10 children on that day. She brought back alive her 10 children. I showed you the list. Who should be charged for this crime? Not Karen Silva. Who should be charged with the crime? The owner and Sandy Ruiz. Why are you saying this, Frankie? Why are you blaming the owner? Because the owner did not do her due diligence. When she asked, we're out to seek the truth, Chester. We want to find the truth, wherever that may lead. And based on what we see, Karen Silva should not have been charged with the crime. Why? Because she brought back her 10. When the kids got back to the daycare, the owner asked, ¿regresaron todos? Sí. Karen Silva said, yeah, I checked off my 10. Yes, my 10, my responsibility, are back. Why are you so angry? I'm passionate, Chester. I'm passionate. And we want to seek the truth. We do want justice for this baby. But we want justice to be blind, not to fall on public opinion. Who should be charged with the crime, Frankie? The owner. The owner should be charged with this crime. Why? Because she did not do her due diligence of saying, Karen, did you bring your 10? Yes. Did Karen bring her 10? Yes. Karen checked off her 10 that she was responsible for. When the owner asked Sandy, ¿regresaron todos, Sandy? Sandy said, sí, regresaron todos. Sandy didn't do her due diligence. There was negligence on the part of Sandy, not Karen Silva, because Sandy did not check one by one the list. The Urbinas were on her list. Why did she not check it off? Because she was negligent. Who is to blame, Frankie? Sandy Ruiz. Sandy Ruiz is to blame. She was entrusted with the Urbinas. The Urbinas were 2 of 10 that the preschool entrusted her with. She took them to the Los Fresnos Safari. She came back to the Fresno Safari. But only 9 got off that van. Karen Silva checked off her 10 that got off the van. Sandy Ruiz didn't. That's negligence on the part of Sandy Ruiz. The owner was present and did ask. ¿Todos llegaron? Sí, todos llegaron. Why didn't she confirm? Why didn't she check off the list one by one? A ver, Karen, tú dijiste que tú regresaste con todos tus niños. A ver, uno por uno. Ahora tú, Sandy, uno por uno. If she would have done that, the life of baby Logan would have been saved. The life of baby Logan would have been saved if the staff, when Karen was out on a doctor's appointment, if the staff listened to baby Jeremiah. Baby Jeremiah was saying, ¿Dónde está mi hermano? Where's my brother? Where's Logan? Where's Logan? Where's Logan? Vete para allá, vete para allá. Vete para allá. Vete para allá. The staff, when Karen was away at her doctor's appointment, failed to hear the cry, the outcry of Jeremiah. The staff failed to do a head count with food. The staff failed to do a head count. according to the Texas Penal Code, assault offenses, chapter 22.04, injury to a child, it talks about custody and control. Karen Silva gave up that custody when she checked off her 10. She said, my 10 are here. My 10 are alive. She clocked out and she went to her doctor's appointment. The responsibility lies on the owner and Sandy Ruiz. Karen Silva is innocent. I showed you the proof. We'll talk about the statute moving forward, and we'll be talking about this story in the very near future once again. And that, my friends, is the rest of the story. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Best believe we will always seek the truth, no matter where it guides us. We've been fortunate enough that we've been covering stories throughout this summer that have been meaningful, that have been important. It is important for you to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Good Morning Brownsville, as long as you let me, Brownsville, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. to talk about those important issues, these important issues that are important for you, for your community. We seek the truth. We seek justice. And in this case, we feel as if Karen Silva should not have been charged with this crime. She brought back her 10 who she was responsible for. She was not present after they got back from the daycare. Multiple attempts should have been made from the owner checking each list, from the staff counting the heads of the children that ate. Karen Silva wasn't there. They should have counted the cots of the children that slept. Karen Silva wasn't there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page titled Frankie Olivo TV. I hope you have a great Thursday, Brownsville. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we won't be in the studio. We'll be covering a story from somewhere else. My name is Frankie Olivo, and this is Good Morning Brownsville. Peace! Mm.